The roads in Umuoma community were always dark at night, even when the moon hung full in the sky. Ngozi hurried home past midnight. These paths by day were crowded and full of life. By night, they belonged to emptiness and silence, and sometimes other things. The dense bush had grown bold and crowded the narrow path. The scent of wet earth hung heavy in the humid air. Ngozi held her flashlight ahead of her, like a shield guiding her home. The light flickered nervously, as if it too feared the night. She had walked these paths so many times by day, less by night, but she knew her way, and the eerie sounds of the night was not one to frighten her. It was 4 months ago that she moved in with her aunt. She still missed her home, the familiar comfort of her grandmother who raised her. Things were so different here. There was never enough time in a day to get things done or to rest. Her days began earlier than the sunrise and ended way after sunset. She would begin by making breakfast and then heat up water for her cousins to bathe. She would prepare them for school and take them there. When she got back, she would handle some house chores before cleaning herself up. She and her aunt would then leave for the beer parlor that her aunt owned. There, Ngozi's back would not know rest until night. She would go to the market to get the ingredients needed for the peppered beef and pomo that was the staple dish of the beer parlor. She would prepare the dish, batch after batch, and serve the customers with their drinks. She ignored the comments of drunk men and their passes at her. She had a plan. She'd been saving her allowances. A year from now, she would have enough to enroll in a fashion school. Her dream was to become a stylist since she found out that there was a good fashion school in Umuoma. She had met the owner before. Mrs. Eni had come to the beer parlor looking for her husband, who spent most of his days drinking and betting at the parlor. They had a short conversation, and when Ngozi told Mrs. Eni about her dream, the woman had squinted at her and pinched her chin. "You could be a model, my dear," she had told her. Before Mrs. Eni had left, she told Ngozi that whenever she was ready, she should come by the fashion school. Ngozi knew the school would offer her hands-on experience and open doors for apprenticeships and a career. Then she would be able to care for her grandmother, who was now getting too old to live alone. Perhaps she would meet someone then, a man she would love and who would love her in return. Ngozi would daydream about the future all day while she cooked and worked and cleaned, while she picked her cousins from school. Once the day was over and the customers had left, her aunt would leave so Ngozi could clean up and close the beer parlor. She got home way past midnight most days. Rest was an ever-eluding friend. Ngozi knew a shortcut. It took 5 minutes off her walk home. She cut through unfarmed lands and the skeletons of abandoned, uncompleted homes. Her feet took quick steps as she hurried home. Umuoma felt dead at night, even worse on these paths. She always felt like she was being watched, or worse, followed. Sometimes she would hear the echo of footsteps behind her and would turn around only to find nothing but emptiness. Tonight was no different, only it had rained for a while that night, keeping her at the bear parlor even longer. Now the air was heavy with water and the cloud hid the moon. The wind was still, and yet sometimes the leaves around her would rustle. Her grandmother's warning rang in her mind. Never answer when you hear anything at night. Pretend you hear nothing. Spirits move around at night, bored and in search of a prey. An acknowledgement to them is a permission. Ngozi shook her head. Folk tales, nothing more. She was 18, not a child. But the bush began to whisper louder as she walked, the rustle of unseen feet. the shiver of leaves even though there was still no wind. Then she heard it. Ngozi froze, her flashlight trembling in her hands. It wasn't a human whistle. There was no tune, no joy, just one long hollow note that scraped across the bones. Her lips parted, instinct urging her to call out, "Who's there?" But her grandmother's words clamped her mouth shut. She kept walking, faster now, eyes fixed on the brown muddy paths ahead. Ngozi's skin prickled. The flashlight flickered, threatening to go out. She quickened her pace, muttering under her breath, "God, please, let me reach home." She stopped, her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head. The bush around her looked empty, yet the shadows felt thicker. She thought she saw something between the trees, like a face, but too long, too thin, watching her with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Her knees weakened. She turned and ran. Her stomach lurched. Something was whistling from the very path she was sprinting towards. She slowed, chest heaving. The flashlight shook violently in her grip, spilling light onto the path. And then she saw it, a figure standing on the path. It was tall, too tall, its body wrapped in what looked like raffia, soaked dark and dripping, as though it had just climbed out of a river. The face was wrong, white, flat, featureless, except for a small pair of glowing eyes and a gaping slit that stretched from ear to ear. The whistle came from the figure. It was long and hollow, burrowing into her skull. She staggered back, bile rising in her throat. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, waiting for her next move. Now her flashlight died. Darkness swallowed her. Ngozi spun around and ran blindly into the bush, branches tearing at her arms, roots clawing at her ankles. She didn't care where she was heading anymore. She just had to get away from that thing. But the whistling, it didn't fade. It followed, above her, beside her, inside her ears. Her chest burned, her legs buckled. She fell hard on the earth, gasping, crying. And then, silence. No whistle, no footsteps, just her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She raised her head slowly. The night seemed emptier now, the air strangely still. She almost laughed in relief. Maybe it was a trick of the dark, a story her frightened mind had made real, nothing more. But then, she heard it again, by her right ear, so close it felt like a breath. Ngozi didn't scream. Her voice was stolen before it could leave her mouth.